Okay, welcome, folks. We're glad you're here to our 16th episode of Not Your Ordinary Church podcast. And my name is Jordan. I'm your host tonight. I'll be asking the questions. This is Pastor Ford.
Hey, I'm here.
He will be answering the questions. Before we get started, I just want to ask you guys if you want to hear about these podcasts in the future, any events we have going on, you can click the alarm notification bell. And we encourage you to like, subscribe, and also tonight you can ask questions. We always open this up for questions during the podcast. You can answer them in the chat box if you have a YouTube, the actual YouTube app on your phone, or if you're doing this on a computer browser, you can open up the chat box and file out some questions, and we will answer them in order. So tonight's topic is living versus believing, and we're just going to jump right in. Total disclaimer. Pastor Ford actually picked this topic, and I think a good first question to ask. Obviously, all these questions are super, as we like to say, organic. They're authentic. I come up with the questions. Pastor Ford doesn't know what I'm going to ask, and so we haven't rehearsed this. This is all right from the hip for Pastor Ford, but obviously he's got experience behind. He's been pastoring for over 30 years, been a Christian for over 30 years, been pastoring for 30 years, right?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah.
37 years to be exact.
Okay.
I've been a Christian.
So, a lot of experience. This is the reason why we're asking it or doing it in this forum. We want your questions to be authentic. We want the answers to be authentic. And so this isn't rehearsed. And so we'll just fire it right off. First question I have is, why do you think that this topic is important for today?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about it, and just the idea of living versus believing, because this has become something that's really critical to me. Is just the whole idea of, people believe things. They say they believe things, but when it comes right down to it, is it just a belief? And that was why I was inspired about the topic, was because of that standpoint of when I think about the mind a lot. That's what it comes down to. I think about the mind a lot, and I think about how I like to think about thinking, and I like to analyze things. And what I've come to realize is that I don't know how to say this. Come right out and say it. But the bottom line is, I'm surprised at how many people prefer to lie to themselves, and you can tell by the way they live, by the things they claim about themselves. That they're not honest with themselves. They haven't sat down and actually looked at, they say they believe certain things, but when it comes to their actual lives, that's not what they believe. It's just what they think about, but it's not what they believe. And that's why it was something that was so strong in my thinking.
So when we talk about what people believe and living their beliefs, in a sense, don't people live what they believe from the standpoint of, like, the non-believer in God doesn't believe in God, so they live their lives as if God doesn't exist, versus Christians who we would call like lukewarm Christians, or what we've been talking about, the religious Christians who are basically not biblical Christians. Don't they kind of live what they believe, or is it that they believe one thing but live another?
Yeah, that's exactly my point, is that idea that people have claims of things they believe. Like, people will claim that they don't believe in God. It can go either way. They can claim they believe in God, or they can claim they don't believe in God. But then when you look at their lives, they live so people who claim to believe in God will often live as if God doesn't exist in the day-to-day affairs of life. So they go through life and they live like God doesn't exist. For example, one of the things that I noticed, I think the last probably 3 or 4 sermons, I've specifically talked about the word blessed. And then I maybe missed one, and then did couple of more, and then actually did a whole sermon on it. And so I probably mentioned it to some degree or another, at least every service for the last 3 weeks. And then I was at somebody's house, and we bowed our head to pray over our food. and they said, Father, thank you for this food, and we ask you to bless it in Jesus' name. Didn't even think about it. Didn't even cross their mind that the thing that I've been saying that we do, which is pretentious, it's not real. It doesn't mean anything. It's just false crap, And every service I've been talking about it for like 3 or 4 weeks. And I'm sure there are people listening going, yes, amen. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. And then bow their head and say, God, I want you to bless my food. Because it's not what they believe. It isn't. They think it is, but it isn't.
So how much of that is habitual? Like things you just do that are just so habitual, you literally don't think about them. And how much effect does that have in the grand scheme of eternity and stuff like that? How much do your habits, your subconscious habits, affect whether or not you're going to go to heaven, for instance?
Well, that's exactly my point in this. In what I'm talking about is that whole idea that people, this is what they claim to believe, but it's not. It's not. If you believe that God was real and that God answered prayer and that prayer was important, would you just bow your head every day and just say, God bless this food in Jesus' name, and not even think twice about that it doesn't mean anything and that it's not important, and you're not really asking God to bless the food or anything. It's just a ritual. It's just a religious thing to do. If you were a Hindu, you would pray the same kind of a thing to the 10,000 Hindu gods. There's no difference. And so that's what I'm talking about why I talked about the difference between living and believing, because people they do have a belief. They have a belief, and they live according to the truth of what they believe. But what they claim to believe is two totally different things. And that's the point that I'm making is that people claim, yes, I've met Jesus. I've had a personal relationship with Jesus. I know Jesus is real. I want to live my whole life for Jesus Christ and make all kinds of claims. But that's not how they live. It isn't at all how they live, not in real life. They get up in the morning and they think, oh, I should pray, but I'm late to work, and so I'm not going to pray. And weeks can go by without reading the Bible, and they say, oh, one of these days I'm going to have to get around to reading the Bible because it's really, really important. And so this is what I mean. They believe those things. They believe them, but they're not living them. And that's the difference.
So what exactly is the problem? Is it what they're living or what they're believing? So basically, do they believe the wrong thing, or are they not living what they actually believe?
Yeah, they're not living what they actually believe, but they're being they're being dishonest. They're being dishonest with themselves. They're not being dishonest with God. They're being dishonest with themselves. And so, it can go the other way as well. People can have that kind of an attitude where you don't believe in God, but you live as if God exists.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yes, I can. How anonymously I want to do it. Yes, let's leave it. Let's leave it completely anonymously. I know this guy, who every time we get together, he tells me, it isn't so much that he says he doesn't believe in God. It's that he says he's okay with God, and then he tells me all the things that he does, and I tell him this is not, this kind of stuff is not acceptable with God, according to his word, according to the Bible. And so, but in his mind, no, I know this is fine, and God is okay with the way that I'm living, and this and that and the other thing. And then he'll make excuses for everything, and so he's not living what he believes. He claims to believe, that God exists from the standpoint of being religious. He's out there somewhere, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how he lives. It doesn't matter, and he's always telling me this, but then he'll turn around and make excuses. That's my point, is he makes excuses for all the things that he's doing. And so so he's saying God doesn't care that he does these things, but then he makes excuses for doing them as if God cares. And so that's what I'm saying, is not living what he believes. So he has this set of beliefs, but they're not really what he lives.
So what is kind of the foundation for that? Like what establishes that way of living, in a sense? Like, you have people that they believe and they live their lives a certain way, and you can look at it and say this guy isn't living what he believes, or this guy's believing the wrong thing? What's the foundation for that? How do people get, grounded? In other words, where's the direction you'd point people to? If you want to learn how to live your beliefs, here's the foundation of it.
Well, to keep it general, let's not even talk about the standpoint of believing the right things. You can believe the wrong things, but it's the fact that it's shocking to me. I don't understand how people can lie to themselves. I really don't understand how you can be dishonest to yourself. Could you imagine, in the middle of the night, you get out of your bed, there's no lights on, and you're sneaking around the house and you're taking things from yourself and you're hiding them somewhere, because and your hope is that you won't discover that you've actually been stealing from yourself. That just doesn't make any sense. It's a total disconnect. Why do we do that when it comes to living what we believe? That's exactly what people do, is they claim to believe certain things. Like they can claim that they believe that honesty is the best policy, for example, and then lie. And then not only lie, but tell themselves, in this circumstance, lying was the best policy. But then to get upset and bent out of shape if anybody pulls that same thing on them. So how can you lie to yourself? I mean, this is the thing that puzzles me, is how is it that people can actually just lie to themselves, not be honest?
We have a question here. What does the Bible say about living and believing?
That they should be the same thing. I mean, they should be the same thing. You should be living what you believe, what is coming out of your mouth, what you're claiming is in your head, what's claiming is part of your thoughts. That should be how you're living your life. It's scripturally speaking. That's what the Bible teaches, is that it talks about, the idea of being double-minded. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And so the idea, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And so the idea of, the integrity, is used a lot in the Bible, the word integrity. And that's really what it comes down to, is integrity. When you say you believe things, but then you live contradictory to what you say you believe, then you have no integrity.
So why does living what you believe actually matter? You're applying this to the biblical Christian, but you're also applying it to people who, just say they believe one thing but live another. Why does it matter for people who don't believe in the Bible? Why does living what you believe matter?
You can never achieve anything in life if you're disconnected from yourself. How in the world can you ever be you're gonna destroy every single thing that you try to achieve in your life.
We got another question here. Do you think that people who don't live what they believe actually believe what they say they do? In other words, if they're not living it, they don't truly believe it.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point. Is they're not. It's a belief, but it's a belief, but it's not what they live. And so I believe, but if they're not living it, then it's not really what they believe. They're just lying to themselves about what they believe, so they can put themselves in a maybe a better frame of light, something along those lines.
So there's actually on that same note, there's a scripture that I've had thrown at me before, where people say, yes, I believe in Jesus, I'm going to heaven, and even though their lives don't line up with what the Bible says a Christian looks like. And the scripture they often bring up is Romans 10:9. I'm sure you know the scripture, but because it says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And that's pretty much where they end. So what do you say to somebody like that?
Yeah, see, that is a good example of why what I'm talking about is so important, is because you may believe here, but you don't believe, because you don't live it. So to say I confess with my mouth and I believe in my heart the Lord Jesus, then that means you're going to live corresponding to that. You're going to live that belief. So you're not going to be going out and sinning. You're not going to go out and live contradictory to the thing that you claim that you believe in your heart about. You're not going to do that. And so, all I have to do is confess in my mouth and believe in my heart. Well, no, what you're saying and what you're doing are not the same thing. You're just confessing with your mouth. You're not believing in your heart. That's the point is that I'm making. Is that idea? Is that you're not believing in your heart. That isn't what's happening.
So, basically, what are some proofs that, like, practical proofs that you're living what you believe? How do people know? I mean, because you're talking about people who are lying to themselves. How can somebody look at themselves and say, I'm not believing what I'm saying?
Well, you make excuses. This is something I don't make excuses anymore at all anymore, because I realize that being in the habit of making excuses is putting yourself in a position to where you are ready to lie to yourself. You're prepared to lie to yourself. And so you have to, because you make excuses, because that's all excuses are. When it comes right down to it, can't remember what it was the other day. Oh, I was talking to a friend of mine. I'd been meaning to call him for a while, and I haven't called him. And I told him, I said, there's no excuse. There's no excuse. I said, how did I say it? I said, how did I put it? Well, the actual phrase that I told him, I said, I'm spinning too many plates at one time. That's my problem. Is that I'm trying to do too much. I need to, and I'm losing track of things, because for a long time I didn't use a planner. I didn't write things down. That's what I was telling him. I said, I haven't used a planner in a long time. I said, but now I've committed myself to so many things that I'm forgetting things. I'm not blaming those things. And that's the point. And I'm not making excuses for those things. What I'm saying is that I have over committed myself to stuff, and I need to take it, bring that under control. I'm out of control. That was really the point. I'm out of control. I need to get myself under control. Not, oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. That's why I didn't call you. I mean, basically what that means is you're not important to me. When people say stuff like that, that's what they mean. You don't matter to me. I have other things that I'm doing, and so I forget you all the time because you're just nothing to me. That's really what they're saying. Yeah. And it's not, of course, what people mean. It's just an excuse. We use it it's just an excuse. I'm too busy. And it's not that we're too busy. It's that we don't have control of our time. And because the world doesn't take away our time. It isn't like, we wake up in the morning and go, oh no, I only get 22 hours today. Somebody stole 2 hours from me. It's not what happens. Yeah. You have as much time as every day as you have always had. It's just you poor planning. You're trying to achieve too many things at one time, whatever. But it's your fault. I mean, at the end of the day, and that's the thing. So excuses. You can't make it. If you're the kind of person that makes excuses, you will be the kind of person who lies to yourself. Yeah. Simple.
So question though, because you're talking about a habit that you've developed consciously. And when somebody makes excuses, often it becomes a subconscious thing.
Yeah.
And when you're a liar, you'll lie without even thinking about it.
Yes.
So how do you identify that when you can't even identify it in the first place?
No. You can identify it, and you're doing it. You make excuses for doing it.
I imagine people listening are probably making excuses for why that isn't, the case with them specifically.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
How do you break through that?
Well, but this is my point. The fact that you have to reach for an excuse, that should be your indicator. Yeah. That should tell you right there. You're making an excuse.
So give me a clear definition of excuse so that everybody listening knows that was an excuse.
Whether you say it with your mouth or you think it in your head, the word "but" goes into the conversation.
But
it's but.
Yes.
I was going to call you, but I was going to do this, but and insert excuse here.
Yeah.
So.
So is this something though? So you became a Christian over 30 years ago. Is living your belief something that came naturally for you? You gave your life to Jesus. Was it just like a bam, I'm going to live what I believe? Or is this something that you've developed over time? Like the habits that you've picked up on or habits that you've developed and disciplined yourself to do, is this a discipline or was this something that just came naturally for you?
It's a growing process, and I've always had the same commitment to that I'm going to live what I believe. I've always had that same commitment. I've just gotten better and better and better at it as time has gone on because I'm always self-evaluating. I'm always looking at myself and how I'm doing and where I need to improve and looking for feedback, and that it's those kinds of things that I'm always looking for in my own life. I'm looking to see if I'm improving, am I getting better? For me, I would think this would be true of anybody, but I'm very, very happy with my life because I can look back, 3-6 months at a time, and I always see growth. I never see a point in my life where, wow, 3 or 6 months has gone by and nothing's changed in my life. I'm not better, than I was before, and I don't know why everybody doesn't live like that, because it's very, very rewarding to live like that. It's very rewarding to be able to look back at your life, just a few months ago and to see change, to see increase, to see how things have changed. The sermon that I'm preaching tomorrow night, it's talking about how, in February when COVID, COVID hit in January, but when it really started the lockdowns and everything, and I realized that we were going to have to have a live stream, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to do that, and but I decided what's the option? What are the alternatives? We can't meet, so what am I going to do? And then just decided I was going to do it. And then not only did I decide I was going to do it, but I threw myself into it. And there was actually a real inspiration that I began to realize this is a tremendous opportunity, and almost to the point to where I could kick myself for thinking, wow, you almost missed a golden opportunity in terms of being a Christian. You could have missed that. You could have just been how many people are and just, ride out, COVID and just, well, we can't fill in the blank, not just we can't do this or that. We can't fill in the blank, whatever it is. I mean, everything, and just wait, and I noticed like probably by April or May, I'm making videos. I'm doing various things with the live stream. I think it was, probably somewhere in there, I started the podcast, and the results of being able to reach people, the influence, the contacts with people, that to make such a horrible situation to become so productive, that to me 2020 is actually going to be a landmark for one of the best years of my life, and that wouldn't have happened if I didn't scrutinize myself, if I was lying to myself and making excuses and doing all those kinds of things. I would be like how many people are today, just waiting for this to be over. Their lives are on hold. They've lost a year of their lives because of things that are out of their control, and because of the habit of their lives of when something is out of control in their lives, then they just give up, and they just roll, just roll over and make excuses and say, well, it's because of COVID, and it's like you've lost a whole year of your life. You've done nothing with your life for a year, and you're okay with that because you don't live what you believe.
So you said habit of their lives, and actually that's on point with the next question I was going to ask, is because you see, especially I'm sure you've seen this over the years, that people that have made decisions to serve God, and you see in parallel two lives, kind of some people that they get it, they there's kind of a radical experience with God, they meet Jesus, and then they start this new life of Christianity, but then years down the road, you have some who are like what you're saying, you're constantly growing, constantly changing, And then you have others who seem to have like leveled out, and they become this like relaxed version of what they were planning. You know, when they first became a Christian, all of a sudden it's like a plateau. What's the difference? Is it how things started? Is it something that happened in the middle? Is it disappointments over the years? What changes? What makes the difference for those who now have been Christians for a long time that aren't living their beliefs, and then those who are constantly living their beliefs?
This is the idea why I wanted, why I was so interested in talking about this subject, is because I think that is exactly what's happened, is that they, rather than change, they made excuses, started lying to themselves, started bending the rules in their own lives, and as a result had established tons of bad habits. But it's interesting, if you talk to people like this, they're not doing anything with their lives anymore, but they talk a great game. They talk a great game. They can tell you about all kinds of stuff that they've researched, and all kinds of stuff that they've learned, and all kinds of stuff that they know, and say things. It's funny, if you hit that subject, that of their ambition, the subject of their ambition, they'll get all excited and talk about it, and talk and talk and talk about it. But you look at them and you think, why aren't you doing anything about that? You have these big things. I was watching this video. I can't remember the guy's name. He's a young guy, and he does these seminars. And he had a seminar that he was doing. There's like 4,000 people at this seminar, and he was talking to millennials and Generation X, and so they're 20 somethings, and the energy that this guy had, and is talking to people and saying, we have been raised in a generation of people that don't believe in anything. Talking about my generation, talking about us, because my generation is the generation post 60s that is just, all they care about is pleasure, and if making money, and living for the moment. And so here's these millennials, they're cheering this guy on. I mean, they're basically ready to burn at the stake everyone over 50, because there's just no motivation to become or to do anything, And so for me, I was really excited to see that. I was really excited to watch that, because it's history repeating itself. It goes through these kinds of things. You have these people, the ones that pay the price, the greatest generation type of people, the ones that paid the price. But then the ones that come after them are the losers that just live off the winnings from that previous generation, but then they don't have anything to offer the next generation. And so now this next generation has to rise up and claim that for themselves. And so they'll be that generation that rises up that will be the next greatest generation, but not because of those that went before them, but because of what they don't want to be like the people that went before them. Now, what a tragedy that is. What a tragedy it is. And there are many Christians that are like that too, is that there has-beens, they're new Christians that come along, that especially in this time, with everything that's happening in our world right now, that people who become Christians like right now during COVID and the difficulties and the things that our society, the upheavals, they're going to get it. They're going to get the real deal, and they're going to look at, and they're going to despise that kind of person because they don't live what they believe.
We have another question here. Do you think that non-Christians can be saved?
Well, yeah, I saw that a long time ago. That's obviously true. You can't. You can't otherwise be. I think that's. I would like to encourage people to not be too terribly worried about just putting a question up just for the sake of putting a question up. But because I know some people that are watching are Christians, but Yeah. So obviously, yeah. I mean, non-Christians, that's who gets saved.
Yeah. Yeah. I have. I mean, I think I'm wondering if maybe there was another related part of that. Anyway. Yeah. Everyone. The question I have is: everyone has beliefs. Everyone believes something, right? Even non-believers believe something.
Well, it depends on how you mean that, that was the point. The difference between living and believing is people have thoughts, and they would call them beliefs. I wouldn't, but they call them beliefs. I wouldn't call them that.
What's the difference?
So everyone has beliefs. No, everybody has ideas, but not everyone has beliefs. Everybody thinks certain things, and they think certain things are true, and they have really strong opinions about stuff. But the truth of the matter is that it doesn't go deep enough to live for it. It's not a belief, And so that's the thing, is that whole idea of believing, really is deep. If you're not living, then you're not believing, and that's why the idea of the title was, because that's what most people think. Most people think you have this set of beliefs, and it's not true. I like, for example, in my life, I didn't believe anything. There was no beliefs. I didn't have any beliefs. Nothing motivated my life. Nothing, beyond pleasure. And so it wasn't, I did things because it made me feel good. I didn't do things because I had some belief. And the truth is, I believe a lot of people in this generation, that's exactly how they live. It's not that they live by their beliefs, it's that they have certain feelings they want to feel. And so they pursue things that they think will make them feel good. And so it's not a belief. It's not a belief. A belief is something that causes you to do things that you don't want to do.
Okay. So how do you know you're believing the right thing?
How do you know that you're believing the right thing?
Is there a wrong thing to believe in? I mean, if it's just about belief, is there a product of belief that tells you maybe you should be believing something else?
Well,
I mean, is there such thing as like when it comes to, we've had this conversation about atheism and versus, people that believe in God. What, is there really such thing as somebody who just flat out doesn't believe that God exists?
That's a hard question to answer. And the reason is because I'd have to get inside of somebody's head and be able to be inside there to know for sure. I would say, I would say the answer would be yes. Yes, it is possible to not believe in God. I think Christopher Hitchens was probably a good example of that. Just think about it, because he took it right to his deathbed. He was wrong. He was wrong. That's all there is to it. He was wrong, but he believed that. He definitely believed that. And you might say, well, that's pretty arrogant to say that he's wrong and you're right. It's not a question of arrogance. It's a question of, you have to ignore too many things to not know that God exists. You just have to ignore the obvious facts around us of the existence of God, because the Bible says that creation itself proves the existence of God. That this is the idea, and all you have to just look at it. Just look at it's not just silly things. I mean, you could look at the silliest things about humanity, being human, being alive. Just stop right there. Being alive is so complicated. There's the idea of being alive is just it's. If you want to talk about arrogance, talk about how we're almost to the point to where once we are able to find the right two chemicals, we will create life. I mean, that's sheer arrogance to think that life is that simple to create. That all it is just the right combination of chemicals, and there will be life. That's just so foolish. And I had a conversation with a guy about this, to be exact about it. He was a biologist. He was a molecular biologist, and I was talking to him, and I told him, I said, that building over there one day will become a living creature. Just needs enough time, because all the elements are there, just like in the beginning, And so, just given enough time, that is going to become some kind of living creature. And he looked at me with disdain, and mocked. And he said, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And it was like, that's what evolution says, that life sprang from non-life, and it just needed the right time and the right combination of things. And so why wouldn't I think that a building would spring to life if I'm a true believer in evolution? And so that's what I mean is when I say, do people really believe in it or not? I can't really answer that question. And like I said, I would say, Christopher Hitchens, like I say, took it to his death, and he does believe it, but it's in the absence of considering everything. So, because your question, I'm kind of going back to your question about how do you know when you're believing the wrong thing?
I know you haven't really isolated this to the belief in God. You're talking about, basically living honestly, believing what you, basically practicing what you believe.
Yeah.
But specifically in that area.
I respect everyone, regardless of their beliefs, if they're consistent, and that's where the breakdown comes for me. And that's where the loss of respect comes in, is people who don't live, whether they call themselves Christians or non-Christians, that they live in such a way that contradicts what they claim they believe. It's called hypocrisy. And I think hypocrisy is probably one of the grossest things that humans have ever involved themselves in. I can't think of anything more disgusting than hypocrisy. And I think that's true of God as well, because Jesus really had a big problem with the Pharisees, who were hypocrites, and that's so the idea of living what you believe, I think, really is critical.
So give me some practical habits, things that people can do to, because we've covered kind of a couple different, from you personally, and then people who over the years have flattened, in a sense, in their beliefs or in the way that they live versus what they originally started believing. What are some things you can recommend to people that over the long haul you believe? And we're talking again about the belief in God, Christianity, the belief in the Bible. How do you survive the long haul?
Well, that's by living what you believe. I mean,
right? No, I know, but practical. So you're talking about disciplines, to learn things that you did over the years.
Yeah,
things that you over
not
the year
so
growing.
Much discipline. Yeah, it's not so much discipline. In fact, I think if somebody was to watch my life, they would really wonder how in the world did I get anything done, because I'm not that disciplined of a person. I really am not that disciplined. I don't get up every day at the same time. I don't. I have some routines in my life, but not enough to where I've been taking a medication and I need to take it every day, and I have to remind myself, because I have no routine in my life to fit in, even though I take it before I go to bed.
Yeah.
You would think, oh, well, everybody, they go in the bathroom, they brush their teeth or whatever, they have their bedtime routine. Well, I don't even have that. I don't even have a bedtime routine. I mix it up. I might go into the bathroom and brush my teeth, and then go do something else, and then come back and go to bed 20 minutes later. It's not like I have A, B, C, D, and I'm in bed. It's not. So I don't have any of those things. It's not discipline. The issue is not discipline. The issue is it's integrity. It's something inside of you that says, I don't want to be fake. I don't want to be a fraud. I think that's probably the most important element, of life, more than anything else in life, is the thought comes to my mind, and there's a truth to it, but it's not. That's not what people mean when they say it. But to thine own self be true. What they mean is don't care, don't worry about anybody else care about anyone else. No. If you're going to be true to yourself, then you're going to care about everyone else. In fact, you're going to put everyone before yourself if you're going to be true to yourself, because you don't want to be a liar. You don't want to be a fake. And so you're going to be very, very conscious of other people. You're going to be very conscious of how you behave and how you act in front of other people, because you don't want to be a fraud to them either. You don't want to be a fraud to yourself, so you don't want to be a fraud to them either. And that it's not. You're going to put people because of your own integrity. You're going to put people before you. You're not going to just run roughshod over other people. You're not going to, who cares? Screw you. I just need to do that, because that's inconsistent with integrity. It's inconsistent with who you are as a person. That you have people in your life that you're very careful and you love them and you care for them, and then you have other people that you don't, in your life. Why is that? The reason is because these people over here are to your benefit, and that's why you do that. You put them in a higher place because they benefit you, because you're a selfish pig. And these other people over here, you don't. You don't, because they can't benefit you. They're never going to give you anything. So you give them the time of day. Well, that's not integrity. That's not being integral. That's not being true to yourself, because you're living by different, standards that are, and so it's not, so like I said, it's not discipline. It's not the idea of discipline.
Well, I think more what I mean is not necessarily discipline from the standpoint of, I guess more habit is the thing. Like for instance, do you pray regularly?
I pray like what's his name? Smith Wigglesworth. I hardly pray more than 15 minutes, but I hardly go 15 minutes without praying. Really, there's a real truth to that. Do I get up again? Like I said, I don't have these disciplines. Do I get up every single day and pray for an hour? No.
But you have a discipline in valuing people, which is what you just mentioned, and so you've developed. I mean, if I'm honest, before I became a Christian, I really wasn't even after becoming a Christian, dealing with the issue of selfishness. Like you said, you're a selfish pig because you value up people that can benefit you, but you've developed something else. And so give that a name. That's my point, is what are the things that you can recommend? These are things that if you have working in your life, is it just the one? Is it just the value of being, you value people, value people who can benefit you and value people that can't? Is it like,
I think for myself, the underlying, and the truth is I think this is universal, because I don't see any other way you could actually pull it off. And that is that I know I'm going to stand before God, and I'm going to give an account for every idle word. It's very, very specific in the Bible, every idle word. So, that means the things that you say without thinking, you're going to give an account of that. So that tells us that we are going to give a high level of accountability to God, a high level of accountability to God. And our eternity is going to be affected by that judgment. And so for me, that's at the top. I do not want to stand before God and have him look at me and have to, say, you were great, but, and you did this and you did the other thing and you did the other thing. And I don't want that. I don't want to stand before God and have God, I want him to look at me and say, well done, And it's not a question of, is he going to say, well done, or depart from me? We get this wrong. We get this idea that it's going to be, well done, depart, well done, depart, well done, depart. No, there's a judgment. It's an actual judgment, a personalized judgment for our lives that our eternity is going to be based on. And so I want my eternity to be the best thing that it can possibly be. Now, that sounds selfish, but it's God's desire for me. And so ultimately what I'm saying is that I want God's best for my life. And so everything I do has to come into play. I think about it all the time. I think about myself as a husband, as a father, as a grandfather, as a friend, as a pastor. There are people, when one of the problems about being transparent when you live in a world of people who hide things is they think you're still hiding things by being transparent. And so I say stuff and it's like, wow, if you can actually say that publicly, what do you like privately? And it is what it is. It is what it is. But the truth is there are people that sometimes I don't want to have anything to do with them. I just want them to go away and go take them and themselves and their problems and go away and not constantly drag down my time and my energy with all their woe is me's and this is and that's the other thing. But I can break that in my mind by just saying, God called me to be a pastor. It's my calling. I don't have the luxury of entertaining ideas like that. And that's the difference. It's that kind of a thing. Is that I'm going to stand before God and he's going to look at me and say, so you could care less, whether that person came to church or not. Just because they were a pain in the butt. You could care less. What do you want me to do with that? What can I do with you in eternity when I know that there are people who you don't care about? People I care about. God speaking. I care about these people. You don't care about them. So, go pick weeds. Go weed a garden somewhere. But I'm not going to put you over city. I'm not gonna put you in some position where you're gonna have some kind of authority thinking like that. And so that's what I'm talking about. It's that overall thinking of I know there's an eternity and I know eternity is forever and I know I'm not going to get a second chance at eternity, so I don't want to screw it up. And I've tried over the years to try to boil that down, to just some principles, some simple principles. And I think one of the most important principles is just that, is that idea that scripture is always in my mind. Not all who say to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but those who do my will of my Father in heaven. And that I'm constantly, that thought is constantly in my mind with the idea. I don't remember who it was who was saying this the other day, but I'm listening, I'm thinking, wow, that's exactly how I feel, is that idea, is that I know that if I let my guard down, I know that if I take for granted my salvation, that it will make it very, very easy for me to lose it. It'll make it very, very easy for me to walk away from it. We're not saved by our merit. It's not a meritocracy. We don't merit eternal life. But at the same time, it's not just, God did everything and we don't do anything. So it's because I'm really a fan of making things easy, not making things more difficult than they are. So I don't have, the 30 rules for life. Yeah. It's like, cause if I did have a 30 rules for life, I would probably forget half of them or 3/4 of them, and I'd only remember 3 or 4. So for me, it's like, the two areas, the two areas that of success, or something like that. It's like, do this and you do that, and I think that that's the thing, is that at some point, and this is my vision for the podcast. This is my vision for the world. This is the vision for what I believe God wants to do through my life, is just to try to get inside of people's heads and make life easier. Just listen, if you will just not be a hypocrite, if you will not be a hypocrite and you will just open up your mind and you will allow God to show you things, then you can make life a heck of a lot easier for yourself. We make life so complicated because we want to lie to ourselves. We want to play games. We want to make excuses. We want to say all kinds of weird stuff. And we don't want to just be honest and say, hey, I'm in trouble here. I don't know what to do, or, ask for help. I mean, there's a book that I just finished listening to this afternoon called The Road to Character. And at the end of the book, he has these 10 things, which don't even ask me what they are. I don't know. I can't remember what the 10 things are. But like I said, I'm not good with lists. But some of the things he mentioned were just, it's like, yes. It's so practical. Yes. Integrity, humility, these kinds of issues that if you'll just be humble, and just admit, the truth about yourself, then God's grace can come in and God's grace can help you. But no, we want to put this front out there, this fake thing out there, and we end up claiming to believe, and having all these deep convictions about things, deep ideas of how life works and stuff like that. But then in a pinch, we just chuck it. we just chuck it, it's just, it's, I believe in God. I believe in God. I believe in God. I want to live for God. I want to live for God. Oh God, I'm crying. I'm this, I'm that, and the other thing. But then, putting feet on that and just living that. It's like, oh, well, I wasn't thinking that way. That wasn't what was going on in my head. It's like, but you're crying and you're all emotional and you really, really want this. Oh, no. I really do want it, but I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I'll just come up with 1,000,001 excuses of how I'm trying my best.
You mentioned a second ago about, giving an account for every idle word you speak. Is that specific to pastors, or is that specific to Christians, or
everybody,
including non-Christians?
Including non-Christians. Everybody's going to give an account for what they've said. Now, the difference is that if you're not a Christian, it doesn't matter anyway. You're in big trouble already because you think you can do this on your own.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be a rude awakening for many, many people when they realize, wow, you know what? Not only could I not do it on my own, I wasn't even close.
Yeah.
I wasn't even in a football field away. It's like I was so far away that it's not even funny.
Yeah. So how important? I mean, this is obviously expounding a little bit, but how important is what you say to God?
What do you mean?
How important is the things you say? Well, how much does God care about the things you say, the way you talk?
Well, we're not saying it to God.
Yeah.
That's the thing is we're not saying it to God. We claim we're saying it to God, but we're not saying it to God. But that's the point. Every idle word.
Yeah.
That's the thing. The nonsense that comes spilling out of your mouth. The drool down your cheek of emotion and compassion and all kinds of promise. Those kinds of things. Those aren't gonna. What was this? What was that? It's not so much what we say to God. It's just what we say.
Yeah.
And what we claim we believe.
Yeah. So you've given me some examples of or some signs of what people can see if they are people that don't live what they believe. What are signs to the individual that they are living what they believe? What are the benefits?
I'll do signs first. So signs. The sign. One of the key signs is you'll all of a sudden realize that you actually do have a conscience. That's one of the first things you'll realize. See, because when you're constantly lying to yourself and making excuses, you don't have a conscience anymore. Your conscience just checks out. Your conscience is like, there's no point. There's no point in trying to tell you that you're a liar.
Yeah.
Because you'll just make another excuse anyway. So there's no point.
Quickly define conscience.
Conscience,
Yeah.
that thing that God put inside of us, that tells us you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. And that's the thing that everybody has in them, which is I triple dog dare you to try to explain an evolutionary process that would even bother to come into existence. To keep us from, doing what we want to do. Why would we even do that? It's a societal construct. No, it's in us. It's in us. Everybody has it, and when you violate it long enough, it stops working. And so that's why I said one of the signs is that all of a sudden you will have a conscience, very finely tuned conscience. You won't be able to go, oh well, yeah, it's no big deal. It's like I know of people who will, I was given a dime more in my change, and so they'll run back into the store. Here's your dime, and because I don't want to rip that person off, but if they find they could be in that same store and they find something's been mismarked, and they realize, wow, this is only $5 normally, it's $7. They'll just go buy it. Because it's not, they have habits that take the place of conscience. And so those habits just always work. Oh, I got a dime too much, I got to go back and give that back. But when it comes to a bargain, something that you know, is something that I have to be careful with in my own life. Is that because I'm a tinkerer with stuff, I'll buy stuff off Amazon and I'll mess with it, and sometimes I break it, you know. And if I break it, I can't just say, oh, this was broken, you know. I need you to send me another one, or just send it back to Amazon, you know. I can't do something like that. But there's people who can do that, no problem. But they'll still run back into the store and give the dime back.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a fabricated conscience. And so one of the things you'll see is that your conscience just begins to work everywhere. You'll find yourself being I found that when I got saved, you know. So that's how I knew about this is that my conscience started working. You know, things that I used to just do without thinking twice about, you know. And all of a sudden now it's like you can't do that. It's not Christians don't do that. That's a bad testimony. You know, other people are gonna. If anybody found out about that, you know, that would go well. You know, you would look really horrible as a Christian. You know, so it's like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
You know, times where I've had opportunities to get out of you know, having to pay for things. You know, and you know, by lying, you know, not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. You know, I had an opportunity to manage apartments once, and but no pets were allowed. We had a cat, and so they said, "Oh, just go get a you know, a compassionate, you know, thing from the doctor." They give them away like candy, so don't worry about it. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not going to do that.
Touched a golden calf.
But yet, you know, well, you know how many people I know who they have emotional pets.
Yeah.
Just so they can take them on the airplane. That's the only reason they got it. So they can take them on the airplane, or so they can take them in here, there, or whatever, you know, and it's to their advantage in life. But they don't have a medical condition, and they are lying. They don't have a problem with that. You know, they don't have a problem at all, and they just do it. You know, and it's like, hey, what do I care? You know, what do other people do it? So why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
You know, and so it's this kind of thinking. And so when you've overcome that, you know, that excuse making, you know, lying to yourself type of a thing, those kinds of things, I can't do this kind of stuff anymore. I can't do that because I'm lying. You know, that's lying, and that's not who I am anymore. And so that's the main thing. You said, is there a benefit to this?
Yeah, benefits. I was going to ask that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
what are the benefits?
I hate thinking about things in terms of their benefits, because it is a worldly way of being motivated for things, but it's not how Christians are motivated. You know, Christians aren't motivated by the benefit. They're motivated by doing right because their conscience works, and so that's one of those catch-22 questions.
But there is kind of a reward in it, though. I mean, Christians live, and you have heaven as, you know, the benefit in a sense. You have intimate relationship with Jesus. I mean, there's obvious. These are the kind of benefits I'm talking about.
There are rewards.
Things that,
there are eternal rewards, and God has created us to strive for rewards. Mm-hmm. You know, but I think that's a little different than you know, the idea of personal benefits. You know, you might think, well, what's the difference? I mean, really, you know. But I think about it from the standpoint, I know in my own life, the rewards often in my life are the achievement itself, not the result.
Yeah. Okay.
Of the achievement.
Okay. So sorry. Let me give you an example of what I'm thinking, because not necessarily like something you're going to get from it, but for instance, when you live with an alive conscience and you listen to your conscience, you also live with a clear conscience.
Yeah.
So that's a benefit to living this way.
Yeah.
Can you give me any other examples of that?
So from that standpoint, that's the main one.
Yeah.
But the other thing is just knowing, I know I'm pleasing to God. You know, that's incredibly rewarding, you know, experience of life. Is I'm not second guessing. Is God pleased with me? You know, you know, when I stand before God, you know, and I'm not worried about that day from the standpoint of, you know, that I've done something, and how is he going to respond to that? How is he going to deal with that? Because I already know how he responds to things and how he's going to deal with things in my life. And so I don't have to wait till I get there. Yeah. You know, I can be dealing with those things right now. I can decide, well, you can pay now or you can pay later. You know, it's up to you.
Yeah. Very good. Well, I think we are out of time for questions. We appreciate the questions you guys asked, and we're glad you joined us tonight. We will be having this again next week. And until then, you guys can like and subscribe. Please, if you're coming to these regularly, invite people, bring people that don't know Jesus, people that have questions, people you're talking to, working with, friends on your job, people that are at your house. Bring people to these and let them ask questions, encourage them to ask questions. We really do appreciate everybody being here. And until next week, Merry Christmas. You guys have a good week. And we do have service tomorrow night starting at 7 p.m. You can find the links for our services on our YouTube channel. And we appreciate you guys coming. We'll see you next week.
Yes, have a good Christmas. We'll see you next Tuesday.